Welcome to another edition of the SprintCarUnlimited.com Deep Dive presented by EnTrust IT Solutions. Joining us on this week's show is Jason Johnson Racing owner and crew chief, Philip Dietz. Before we get to Philip, don't forget to check out EnTrust IT Solutions. EnTrust is a full-service technology company serving small and mid-sized businesses in New York, Pennsylvania, and surrounding areas. The staff at EnTrust IT Solutions takes a personalized approach to technology. See why customers are choosing EnTrust IT Solutions as their technology partner by scheduling a free consultation at www.entrust-msp.com or calling 717-292-8868. Philip, welcome to the Deep Dive. We appreciate you being on the show.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having me.
No problem. I know you're preparing to go maybe race this weekend, maybe get rained out. What's it look like going into Knoxville?
Oh, it's not looking too promising right now. I know I've been avoiding the radar just because the percentage is pretty high and it seems like it's kind of gone up over the week, but you just never know. I know there was a real high percentage for Page earlier in the season, and we were able to get both nights in. So I guess you just never know. You can never, plan either way. You just kind of be open-minded and always be prepared to be there just in case.
How difficult you run this team, you're the crew chief, basically it goes through you. How difficult is it kind of waiting around, determining if you're going to leave, when to leave? That's got to be a moving target every week.
It is, yeah. What makes it tough is just like I said, you always have to be prepared for worst case scenario. The way hotel rooms are today, like if you don't book in advance, you might miss out on the opportunity. But then if you book a room and you have a rain out at the last minute, sometimes it's a little difficult to get out of them. So that makes it a little challenging sometimes. Logistically right now, because Knoxville's so close to where our race shop is located in Missouri, it's a little bit easier because we're only 4 hours away. But if we were racing at the Grove tomorrow, obviously it would be a different scenario. We would have left out yesterday. So it can be tricky, but that's just part of how it goes sometimes.
So I wanted to go way back to when you were a kid. How did you get involved in racing?
Well, as many know, Jason was my cousin. And when we were both kids, his dad, Craig Johnson, used to race locally, more for fun than anything, but he used to run a wing modified. And I remember going out, this was at Forest Hill Speedway in Forest Hill, Louisiana. And I used to go watch him on Saturday nights. And at an early age, I just fell in love with the sport and, wanted any opportunity that I could go to the races. I wanted to be there. Fast forwarding as time went on and Jason got older, he had an opportunity to run a few races, like street stock and wing modified. And, obviously he loved it as well. And as he got older, he made the comment that he wanted to pursue it as a career, which we all thought he was crazy. But then fast forwarding even more, I think it was around 96, 97, actually might've been before that. He had an opportunity to run a sprint car and really enjoyed that. And ultimately went to work for, a few teams to kind of learn more about setup and how to run a team. And, one of the biggest names that he worked for, one of the biggest names in sprint car racing, Steve Kinzer. He worked for him in 1999 and then part of 2000 and, really learned a lot about the sport and, what it takes to be competitive. And in 2000, he had an opportunity to race full-time as a driver for it was Laney and Alan Rao out of Greenville, Texas. It's a father-son owned team back then. And I remember because I was living near the Dallas area and Greenville was only about an hour away, maybe a little over an hour. He called me up that summer of 2000 and asked if I could come out and give him a hand. And that's what I did. And at the time, I was probably the best mud scraper out there. I really didn't know a whole lot more than that. I mean, I could do all the basics of mounting tires and, grooving, siping, and definitely cleaning. There was a lot of cleaning involved. But that's kind of how I got involved. It was all through Jason. And yeah, Jason's the reason why I'm still here today.
I guess the story goes in high school, like you were sleeping on the floor. I mean, it wasn't like the Ritz Carlton over there. I mean, you weren't, you were roughing it, so to speak. And it just seemed like your passion was so high that you would almost do anything to be there.
Yeah, I mean, when you're younger like that, or at least for me, I was just so excited just to have the opportunity to race and travel and work with my cousin and you know just be out there, that I was willing to kind of sacrifice or make those sacrifices for the opportunity. So yeah, there were many nights I've slept on the floor. We had this little small toter home that we operated out of, and that was pretty much our home away from home, you could say. Usually, Jason and Bobby had the couch, and it was me at the time that had this little pug, and I guess it was me and the pug that kind of shared either the floor, or they had this a table that made a bed. But we stayed. I mean, our budget, we tried to operate the best we could financially, and so we felt like, by minimizing hotel room expenses, it would allow us to run more races and buy any parts that were needed. So we made do with what we had, and really at the time it wasn't all that bad. Like, I didn't mind it.
You end up at the University of Texas. And I guess, going to school, was it mechanical engineering, if I'm not mistaken?
Mechanical engineering.
Yep. But have you ever worked in the field even? I mean, how did that work? I mean, leaving school, I mean, I'm sure you could have had a pick of the litter as far as jobs in that field, making a solid salary, and you chose this direction. Was there a why in the road and you had to make that choice? And maybe how did your parents feel about what you ended up choosing?
Yeah, well, I mean, they weren't too happy about my decision or ultimate decision, but once I graduated, I actually went on a job interview for a fairly big company in the Dallas area, and I told myself that, if it all worked out, well, then I was gonna get that job and find a place there to live, which I had an apartment at the time. But that was going to become my new life, I guess. Like, I would still try to go out to races and kind of help Jason when I could, but for the most part, I was going to quote unquote settle down and be an adult for once. Well, then that at the same time, Jason was racing in Australia, and he had called me, and he and Bobby were looking to hire a guy to crew for their team back here in the States. And they were getting prepared for was the East Bay, or is that not the 360 Nationals, but the big 360 race at East Bay.
Laney, the lane is it the Laney?
That sounds right.
King of the 360s.
Yeah, that's it. Yep.
Yep.
So shortly before they were expected to leave out, they let the new guy go. It just wasn't working out, and Jason kind of called me in a panic, asking if I could go and finish preparing the car for him, and get him to or at least get everything to East Bay, and then he and Bobby were going to fly straight into Florida and race that weekend and then come back home. And I had told him about my job interview, and I was willing to help as much as I could, but if everything worked out with this new job, but then that I would obviously have to make that my main focus. And so moving on, went to the shop, spent, I think it was a little over 2 weeks kind of getting everything ready to go. And we had a car. I mean, we stripped the car down to bare frame, and you just basically built it back, got the trailer all filled with spare parts, and everything prepared. And we went to East Bay, and we actually ended up winning the race that weekend, which turned out nice. And come to find out, I didn't get the job that I applied for. And well, then that was kind of an open window, I guess you could say. Then Jason really wanted me to stay on board, and I really wanted to continue racing with him. So I decided that I would give it a year. I would help him out that year, and in the meantime, I would still, keep my options open and maybe look for different job opportunities in the Dallas area, and hopefully one day utilize my mechanical engineering degree that I went to school for. But yeah, it seemed like every time I felt like it was time to do something different and take a step back away from racing, it seemed like I would just get another opportunity that was even better. And so it just made it really difficult for me to ever scale back. But I'm glad it worked out that way, because I wouldn't change it for anything.
Oh yeah, you're committed now.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
those years with JJR, that year or so, were you a crew chief, or were you still kind of a helper type, tire guy, car chief?
I would say I was kind of all the above, really. I was more of a car chief than anything. I mean, Jason, he worked. I mean, there were times he worked by himself, or it was he and Bobby, even for a handful of races. So he was pretty much his own crew chief the majority of the time. Now, as time went on, and I got to work with him for many years. He did take a lot of my advice and things that we discussed. But I guess my official role for the team was car chief slash tire guy slash whatever else needed done.
Therapist.
Yes, yeah, you name it.
So you end up at Casey Kane Racing. How did that come about? And what was that experience like? How long were you there?
So this would have been the end of 2009, and the owner of the 41, the shop car at that time, Lanny Rao, he things were getting a little tough with their business, and they wanted to kind of scale back some of their expenses. And obviously it made sense to scale back their race team. So he informed both Jason and I that he was going to be done at the end of 2009, and that he was going to sell all of his equipment and sell the hauler, and at least get out of it temporarily. Maybe he wasn't saying that he was done for good, but he just wanted to scale back. So well, Jason and I, we were kind of open-minded. He went to Australia. He was already committed to going to Australia that year. And when he left, I don't think he had well, I know he didn't have the intention on starting his own team. I think once he got there and he, drove, the guy he was driving for, I think helped persuade him to give it a shot. And in the meantime, I was looking around, and again, I was at that point in my life where I didn't know. I thought maybe that was, my calling to go back home or go back to Dallas and look for a job outside of racing. Well, in the process, I got a phone call out of the blue from Casey Kane, and he said that they were putting together a third sprint car team with Brad Sweet, and they planned on running kind of an open schedule that year. They weren't committed to any series full time, but they were wanting to do some wing sprint car races, non-wing. We ended up doing a handful of midget races, and even a few Silver Crown races, which was really cool. But he wanted me to go there and serve as the crew chief on all the wing sprint car races that we did. And so I gave it some thought. And again, right when I thought that it was time for me to kind of scale back away from racing, I felt like that was a great opportunity. And if anything, I thought maybe it would kind of open doors for even like an opportunity for a NASCAR team, which I really thought I could use my degree in there even. So I ultimately took the job offer and went there, and was there until almost the end of 2011. And then Jason and I ended up reconnecting at that point, and I came back to JGR.
What was it like working? Now, you mentioned Brad Sweet. What was it like working with Brad then, and then seeing what he's become now?
Uh, so it was a big challenge for us all, because I was very new to the crew chief role. We were all very young at that time, or a lot younger than we are today. And Brad, even though he had a lot of laps in a midget and non-wing car, he really didn't have a whole lot of wing sprint experience. So everything was just so new for us at the time. And you know, through the painful learning lessons that we went through, we still managed to have success that year. I think we ran in the top 5, like, you know, right at the start of the season. We went to Bulls Gap and ran top 5, and that was a huge accomplishment for us, especially running with the World of Outlaws for the first time. So to look back and see where we were in 2010, and everything that he's accomplished today as a driver, still driving for the same team, is pretty phenomenal. I think you could see back then that he was going to be someone really good, and he's definitely committed to the sport a lot, and he's always never content with settling for a 5th place run. He's always trying to get better and better and better, and I think his results show for it.
So you go back to JJR and you're going to build this thing. You're building. It's Jason's own team. And then 2016 happens, Knoxville Nationals. What was that whole experience like? Really, that whole week? I remember being there. Obviously, one of the best nationals I've seen, especially just for what it meant to everybody who saw that, the crowd, you name it. What was that whole experience like for you?
So it was a crazy week. It started off really emotional. That year's when we lost Brian Clausen, actually shortly before nationals. So that was, it was really tough leading into that race. Not that we were ever super close to Brian, but I know Jason, he was able to run a midget at Chili Bowl, and got to know Brian really well, and would talk to him occasionally. So I know that was really tough. I remember that being really tough on Jason mentally at that point. So going into the race, we were just, we were sad knowing that Brian was gone, but on the flip side, we knew we were there to do a job, and we felt confident in our car. Our goal that year was to kind of make the race. Anytime you can make the show, that's a big accomplishment. And when we rolled out on our prelim night and we had the speed we did, we were, we felt like we were not only capable of making the show, but we felt like our chances of maybe even running top 10 wasn't unobtainable. So by the end of the qualifying nights, we were sitting, I think, second in points, which was pretty amazing. I know at that point we knew that it was still going to be tough, Saturday. We knew that even if we would have ran top 5, I think we would have been very excited with our result, but we were going to give it everything we could to try and contend for the win. And I know Jason, he was really focused that year. He watched a lot of video and, was really determined. And yeah, it was pretty amazing how it all played out. It's something I'll never forget. Definitely the highlight of my career for sure. And yeah, it still gives me chills to watch the video.
I was going to say, you're in the pit area watching the last 10 laps, 11 laps, and look, you didn't just go out and run away. You had Donnie Schatz right there. You had to pass him. It was a lot going on there. And it was really, I thought, an incredible drive by both drivers. I thought both drivers did a phenomenal job. What were those 10 laps like for you sitting? Because at that point, it's out of your hands. You don't have any break, anything like that. You're just kind of at the mercy of what Jason's doing. Take me back to that. And what were those 10 laps back then?
Yeah, well, I think I was probably more calm than most people would think. Again, we were just happy to be there and have speed and be out front. So we knew Donnie was going to be really tough. I knew that, the race wasn't over until the last lap or right at the checkered. And I knew, I mean, even then, like Donnie, how close he was there at the very end. A few extra feet and the result might have been a little different, but I don't know. I guess it was a mixed feeling of excitement. I think I was really happy with the changes we kind of made there at the halfway point. I remember asking Jason, what do you think? What do you feel you need? And he kind of looked at me and he was like, I can't even tell you. He said, you do whatever you think. He said, I'm going to go out there and drive it. He's like, watch this. And yeah, it was just a really cool night.
At that point, you're a crew chief 7, 8 years. Is that the night, or was it another time where you felt you really hit your stride as a crew chief?
Well, I would say probably earlier days. I feel like I would almost back up to KKR days, really, because that was really the first time I was put in that position, and I didn't really have a choice, So I had to uh, really find ways to, outside of like, watching videos and talking with other experienced crew chiefs and trying to do the best to learn the trade. So I would think, I'd say early, 2010, 2011 is kind of when I felt like I was obtained the title. But I don't feel like I really got good at or better at the job until, you know, I would say almost 2018, 2019.
Wow. I mean, do you think that's kind of if you were talking to, say, car chiefs or tire guys who want to be a crew chief someday, what would you tell them? What advice would you give them? And because I don't think you'd be able to jump in and just be a good, crew chief, like snap of your fingers. There's a lot of learning to that. What would you tell a group of maybe guys who want to go that direction? What advice would be the best advice you'd be able to give them?
Uh, I would say just take good notes. I think a lot of sprint car racing is about preparation and understanding your race car. And, it takes many years to kind of develop what it is the race car needs. And, a lot of racing or success in racing is trial and error. And I've got a whole stack of books of notes on what not to do. But it's kind of taught me, or at least limited down to what I think or what should work today. And I've been able to apply those things just depending on where we're at. And yeah, I would say, preparation, hard work, determination, never give up. There's going to be a lot of really tough nights, and you just got to battle through them and move on to the next race. And, sometimes things are out of your control, whether it's a mechanical failure or, again, so many things that can happen. But and you can never, one thing I've learned in this sport is you can never ever get content. Like, things constantly change, whether they're with the tires or track surface or you name it, the material of the frame. And, I'm sure it's inconsistent from year to year, so you just got to take all those things into consideration and be a very open-minded.
Who are some of maybe your biggest influences as far as maybe another crew chief or someone who maybe helped you become the crew chief you are today?
Well, when I was a kid, I admired Carl Kinzer a lot. I think a lot a lot of people in sprint car racing
Yeah.
admire Carl. I can't say that I never became close to him. There was only one time that we spoke to him on the phone. Jason and I spoke to him on the phone, and that was really the only time that I had, direct contact with the guy. But I think he was just really phenomenal, and a huge innovator in the sport. And to look back and see how much he accomplished, during his time is pretty amazing. But I mean, there's a list of other guys. Obviously, Ricky Warner's another one. I think he's really good at what he does. And it seems like, no matter who he works for, he kind of helps improve their program. And is very passionate about sprint car racing and winning races.
So obviously 2018, probably the worst moment in the sport for you. We lose Jason at, I guess, Beaver Dam. And how, I don't want to, because I know you have not just a crew chief relationship with him, you're related to him. It hits a lot harder for you. How dark was that period for you? And you guys, you continued to race, you raced Knoxville that year. And how difficult was that? And did you ever think about, was this another moment where you thought about maybe going and working a job, a regular job, and just, if you could maybe elaborate on how difficult that whole thing was for you?
Yeah, well, that hands down the toughest time of my life. Like, either
Take your time.
sorry.
No, take your time.
Yeah, there's even times today it's just hard to believe he's gone. At that time, like, sorry.
No, take your time. I know it's a hard, I know it was hard, and again, shocking, obviously, to the sprint car world, but to you and family and everybody who's involved with the team, obviously a lot harder.
Yeah, I think at that time, going back, I think that was a time where I felt like maybe I should have got out racing and, not gone through that whole experience. But on the flip side, I was real thankful to have all those years with him and, accomplish everything that we did in the short time that we were together. Definitely a very tough period for us all. And I think a time where we were all really confused and not really sure what to do. Do we put everything for sale and shut the doors and be done for good, or do we try to continue his name and his legacy and hopefully educate people on who Jason really was. And ultimately that's what we decided to do. Our sponsor, every sponsor that we had on board at that time, they were all willing to back us and see the team continue on. And or at least towards the end of 18, right after the accident, we really weren't sure what to do. And all we knew is that we wanted to go run Knoxville that year, Nationals. And then after further discussion, we thought it would be cool to kind of hit up all of the bigger tracks in different areas, Eldora being one of them. We went to the Grove. I'm trying to think, there were a few other tracks where we went and ran, but we wanted to close out 18, still kind of be involved in the sport. I felt like me being at the track, not right away, but eventually, late as time went on, I think it was kind of a healing process for me and helped to make things a little bit easier. But yeah, definitely a tough time.
You guys, it's not something you ever get past. I think it's something you learn from, or it forms, kind of how you're going to progress. Do you think that had kind of made this whole thing that you have now, in that you were able to come back? Like you said, it was almost like a healing process, maybe a therapy. Do you think it's kind of helped you become the owner / crew chief you are today? Not in a good way, obviously. It's tragic, but just going through that whole process.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's again, I'm very thankful and honored to be in the position I am today. But on the flip side, it's not what I really wanted. I'd prefer
Correct.
for Jason to be here today and he be the owner and he kind of managed everything and I just work under him. But unfortunately, that changed and I was kind of not necessarily forced into this role, but it was an opportunity that was presented to me, and I felt like I would be crazy to at least take the chance and kind of see uh, what we can make out of it.
Uh, would you say you learned a ton from being under him all those years that you were able to use today on how to run a team, how to treat sponsors? Jason was excellent with keeping sponsors happy. He built that team. How much did you take away from that you still use today and to help grow JJR into, let's face it, you're right up there contending for World of Outlaw titles.
Yeah, I think I owe him a lot of credit. He's the guy that he set the bar high, really, many years ago, and we're just trying to live up to it today. He was always professional, kept all of his gear real clean and tidy. Great with sponsors. His sponsor relationship was really good, and we just try to continue everything that he taught me. So to be around him, almost daily for oh shucks, how many years? Several years. I kind of picked up on a lot of those things, and he even shared with me like his, the spreadsheet of every part that we have in the shop, and um, even though while it was really tough to lose him and kind of have him next to me, kind of showing me direction, he in a roundabout way had already shared his notebook with me. So it made it a lot easier for me to kind of come in and manage the team after he was gone.
So you've had a variety of different drivers, and I would say different styles even. Carson Macedo, obviously. Then, you David Gravel, Parker Price Middle, back to Carson Macedo, which I'll get to in a minute. As a crew chief, how difficult is it? And I ask a lot of crew chiefs this. How difficult is it adjusting to different drivers over a period of time?
Uh, I don't think it's very difficult. I mean, the three that you just mentioned there, they're all really good race car drivers, and so it made it a lot easier to go from one guy to another because they all, they've done it long enough. They kind of know what they feel. They're able to give feedback, and it just makes adjustments a lot easier. So yes, the driving styles are different, and we've had to make little minor adjustments to kind of compensate that. For the most part, like if you can do your job as a crew chief to get the car balanced, no matter where you're at, you can put a good driver like Carson or David or Parker in it, and they're going to go out and be competitive.
Difference between Carson when you had him at 18 and when you have him now, and he's watching. So what is the biggest difference between Carson Macedo and the two times that you have him?
I would say he's just matured a lot. Like he's just as a driver, not as a person, but as a driver, he's really really matured, and he knows when to pick his battles and kind of when to scale back and just finish the race. And I think one great example was Paducah the other night. We actually had a right rear tire going down towards the end of the race. It was actually after that open red. And, if you were to take Carson and a flat right rear, or at least a low right rear back to 2018 or 2019, I think he would have just ran it super hard and potentially blown out the tire and caused more damage than just the tire being flat. But that night he knew that it was a concern, and gave up a position or two in the process, knowing that if he ran the wrong spot on the track that it could potentially blow the tire. So things like that is what makes him such a great driver. And I think he's really come a long way, even in a short amount of time.
I agree with you. Obviously, a lot's been said about the new guys coming out of California, especially in the last couple of weeks. So
Mhm.
Carson was in that spot, and now I think he's more accepted than he was before. And I think you're part of that, and I think the whole team's a part of that. And as obviously Carson growing as a driver. Um, I watch you in the pit. I watch everybody in the pit area, not in a creepy way, but I watch people. You're very meticulous. You're very quiet. Um, you're just kind of different in the way that you go about your business. You don't wander off and talk and all that other stuff. Is that kind of your analytical side from the mechanical engineering deal, or is it just your personality, or what is it that kind of makes you that it looks like laser focused at the track?
Probably a combination of all the above, really. Um, I think that, yeah, I guess my years of going to college and trying to obtain a mechanical engineering degree makes me more focused on the task I have at hand. And um, another thing is I feel like I'm there to do a job. I'm not thinking I'm there to do a job. And the way I look at it is I'm there to do a job for all the sponsors that are a part of our team. And for me to just wander around and not be focused on what I really should be doing, you know, I just don't think that's right. And I think it's, important that I pay attention to what I have in front of me and work the best I can with Carson and Adam and Robbie to give Carson the best car we can that night, and um, not worry about anything else in the pit area. Just having a fast race car. So um, I don't know, and it's not that I don't like to go around and visit with guys, but I feel like when we pull into the gate, I'm there to do a job, and it's important that I give it 100%.
Do you ever argue with your drivers? I mean, come on, it's crew chief driver. Do you ever just say, look, you drive it, I'll do it. I'll do all the other stuff.
No, I mean, Jason and I, we got into several heated battles over the years, but I think it was more of just
Family.
family feud than anything. It wasn't ever, anything uh directly related to racing. It was just, but normally we'd hash it out and hug it out when it was all said and done, and we'd move on. But I can't say that I've ever really had, or I've never had like a heated argument with, David or Carson or Parker or any of those guys. I don't know. I guess I'm not that type. Like I just don't, I usually take my anger out of my notebook that I carry with me. And I think I've been through I don't know, 4 or 5 of them now where I just destroy them. But usually I'm at that point, I'm mad at myself more than I am at anyone else. And, I feel like if I did a poor job that night, I take it hard on myself, but I try to come inside the trailer and not, surround myself in the public eye whenever I have my little temper tantrums like that.
You won the Knoxville Nationals again with David. Um, you know, that's pretty rare air for a crew chief to win 2 Knoxville Nationals. You win the first one, it's emotional. You're winning it with Jason, family, obviously. Just came in hoping to make the race. You were on the bonus plan. And then
Mm-hmm.
you win it with David when you were more the favorite to win the race.
Mm-hmm.
What was that experience like? Because it's kind of two different approaches.
Yeah, I felt like it was much easier the second time. Not that it was easy, but it was easier in the fact that we knew that we could go there and be a threat to win. We had all the pieces to the puzzle that we needed, and David, had the experience. I think he had almost won a Knoxville Nationals prior to 19, so he knew what it was like to lead the race and be a contender. And I felt confident that if we gave him a good car come Saturday night, that our chances were pretty high. So um, it was still an emotional night, still a very exciting night. I think the cool part was seeing the 41 back in victory lane there again. But yeah, I would say, that was definitely a cool week for us as well.
Won a third crown jewel at the Grove with the National Open with Carson Macedo. That's again rare. And I know Carson said to me he thought that this is the last place he would he would win a crown jewel. It shows how far Carson's come and the team's come and everything. When you look at like the success you've had, are you pinching yourself a little bit? Did you ever imagine that you would be considered one of the best crew chiefs in sprint car racing, which you are?
No, no, I think for me, I still look at all the races that we should have won and all the races that I would like to win. Not that I downplay everything that we have accomplished. It does mean a lot to me. And, while I'd like to give myself credit, I think a lot of credit is owed to everyone else involved in our team as well, because without them, I would have never even had the opportunity.
This year, it's kind of tough coming into the year. You lost 2 crew guys. That's not an easy deal. Clyde went off and like this, he's doing the carbon fiber thing. Nate Reppitz came back to Pennsylvania and is with Anthony Macri now. It's not enough that you have to run the team. You have to be the crew chief for the team. Now you have to replace guys. It's a lot of obstacles. And it's not easy getting crew members now. Tell me about that process.
So it was definitely challenging. There were a list of guys that we were considering, some that we felt would be a great fit that we were willing to offer an opportunity to, and things just didn't work out. There's a couple of guys that had other opportunities that came about that kind of suited their personal needs, like it being closer to home with their family. And so it made it tough. It made it right when I thought that we had a team lined out, it seemed like something would happen and things would change. And I was back to, looking at other options, but I'm really happy with the 2 guys we have today, Adam Zimmerman and Robbie McQueen. Adam he lives locally here in Missouri. I think he's actually from the same hometown as Clyde. So that makes it easy because he can still get home pretty often and, see his family and, be at work here at the shop a lot easier than someone that lives out of state. And then Robbie, he used to work for Noah Gas. Actually spent a couple years on the road working for Noah and has gained a ton of experience throughout that whole process. And I knew that Robbie, towards the end of last year, was possibly considering other options or other opportunities, but somewhere in the mix, we kind of, lost contact, and I just assumed that he had moved on to something different. And then come to find out, he was interested in a car chief position with JJR, and I reached out to him, and thankfully we were able to put something together. But I feel like both guys work really well together, and they've been a great addition to our team. And both Carson and I are really happy with how they've performed so well this year.
You guys have grown a ton since Volusia. Volusia was not good. Definitely, probably unexpectedly not good. To where you were then, and even though we're only in toward the end of April, how much has this team grown since February?
I would say it's grown a lot. There were some things that occurred at Volusia that we would have never expected. We had a few engine issues that we were, again, unaware of and totally out of our realm, but we addressed those issues after the first trip to Volusia. And when we went back the second time, I felt like we were a lot better. We still weren't quite where we needed to be, but we were better. So that was an improvement. And since then, we've kind of been able to build on it and continue to make changes to our car to get it even better. So I'm happy where we're at currently. I think, or I'm excited where we're at currently. I think that if we continue in the direction we've been since our second trip to Volusia, I think we can only get better from this point on. So, yeah, I'm just looking forward to these upcoming races because I feel like we're going to have speed and hopefully be a contender for a win.
You're one of the best crew chiefs in the game. You're in your late 30s, I assume, 39, 38,
Oh
39.
yeah, I know it's a touchy subject. I turned 40 here in a couple of weeks.
Why?
Yeah.
Okay, I got to ask, why is it a touchy subject?
Well, it's just crazy. I still feel like I'm in, my mid 20s, upper 20s, but to actually think I'm turning 40 just sounds crazy to me. So
I was
yeah,
like that when I was 30, when I was 35. I thought, because when you're in your teens, you're like, man, I can't imagine being 35. And then you turn 35 and you're like, what happened?
I know.
So,
Time
but
flies.
okay, you're going to turn 40. You're one of the one of the top 3, 4 crew chiefs in the game. You have a successful team. How long do you do this? I mean, I don't see you going back to Texas or Missouri or wherever and getting a mechanical engineering job at this point. So,
Yeah.
what's the have you thought about that?
There's been a lot of thought. Yeah. I mean, but I guess in years past, we've always, even when Jason was here, we kind of took it year by year. Nowadays, with some of our sponsorship agreements, we kind of have to consider, or we have to be open-minded with a multi-year agreement. So to answer your question, I'm really unsure how to answer that. I mean, I would love to continue racing or keep our team going for many years. Even if it came to a point where I had to scale back a little bit and be a better husband and better father, and be home more often. But um, thankfully right now both of our kids are still really young, and Brooks, my wife Brooke, the company she works for, they're pretty flexible with her schedule and allows her to kind of come out and travel to a handful of races throughout the year. So it's nice having Brooke at the races. It's nice having our 2 kids at the races. But I know as they get older, things are going to get a little tougher. And at that point, we might have to sit down and consider other options. But again, I would love to see JGR continue on for many years, and I guess we'll just see what happens.
What's the most difficult part of your job as an owner, crew chief, grand
Oh,
poobah, JJR?
toughest part, probably, I would say the most challenging part for me right now, especially being a fairly new dad, is just time management. Uh,
Yeah.
you know, not only taking care of everything that needs done at the shop and making sure we have parts that we need, replacement parts that we need, and then booking hotel rooms, and making sure we get our semi truck in to have it serviced regularly. And now Brooke and I are involved on the merchandise side, so that's been a whole new task of making sure
Oof.
we have the inventory that we need. And but then on the flip side of that, come 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, to shut those doors and put on my dad hat and go home and spend time with Brooke and the kids. It's a new life for me. And while it's been very challenging, I wouldn't change it for anything in the world. I'm very blessed to be where I'm at today.
You know, you guys were one of the last teams to commit to the Outlaws. Did you give High Limit a thought?
We're always very open-minded, to different options. And did we give it thought? I think every team gave it thought. But ultimately, for our sponsors and everyone involved with our team as a whole, we just felt like, committing to the Outlaws in 2024 was the best option for us. Again, it goes back to that whole time management thing. I guess for me, I just wanted to make sure that all of our ducks were in a row before we made such a huge commitment to running with the Outlaws. But yeah, again, I don't know, we were just wanted to make sure that we were fully prepared.
Well, it seems like you guys are very meticulous. as a team. Even Carson, when I talk to Carson, it's workout, see a sports psychologist. He's very, I guess the term is regimented almost. And it
Mhm.
seems like you guys are there's not a lot of, I don't ever see you guys have drama, but very meticulous, very well thought out. And you just mentioned a little bit ago about year by year. Is it good to just, where did you learn this ability to just adjust, take your time with stuff, and really evaluate and sit down and evaluate what makes sense for this team?
I think that goes back to Jason. I think that was kind of his mentality and, his approach to things. And, while you wanted to, or while you felt the need or the urge to do things a certain way, you knew that there were circumstances that you could be faced with that would ultimately change that direction. So you just had to be always stay kind of open-minded and, just do your best to tackle those challenges that you're faced with that day.
Your mechanical engineering degree, do you use any of it? And do you wish crew chiefs weren't in this nice confined box that they have you in sprint car racing? We just had a track here, go with dish wings and flat wings. You could use either one. And so you're kind of the first crew chief I'm throwing this at. I mean, do you wish you weren't in the box? Because maybe that would even benefit you more because you do have that mechanical engineering degree.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think when I graduated college, I didn't think I'd use any of it, but come to find out I've used a lot of it. Obviously you can apply several different subjects to auto racing in general, but especially sprint cars when it comes to, you name it, torsion bars, springs and dampening and shocks and aero package of your wing, and kind of, I think it helped teach me all the basics of sprint cars, and has allowed me to really fine tune my adjustments or have a better understanding of what an adjustment may do to the car. So again, while at the time I wanted to, before college, while I wanted to continue racing, I made that decision to go to college. And there was a stretch or a point where I kind of had regrets that I had given up a little over 5 years of my life kind of away from racing to be in school and get that degree. But since then, I feel like it's really helped benefit me in many ways.
Are your parents okay with the decision? Were they okay with the decision after you won the Knoxville Nationals and all and all the success you had?
I'd say they're okay with it today. Yeah. In fact, they're both my mom and dad are recently retired, and they relocated to Missouri. They actually bought a place right next to where our shop is at. So, and then on top of that, they just bought a little RV. So my dad's been traveling to a lot of races with us, but now that they have an RV, I think my mom's going to be able to come out and, watch a lot of our races as well. So, I'm going to say that now that they kind of follow me and what we're doing as a team, I'd say that they, hopefully approve of my decision.
Well, you could always remind them that you were right.
Yeah.
you could you could always do that. That I don't know if that'll go over well, but
No, probably not.
Philip, I appreciate you joining us on the show. It was really good stuff, and I know you've come a long way. It's been quite a journey from a mechanical engineering degree. So I think you made the right call. And again, we appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you. And again, thanks for having me.
No problem. That's going to wrap up this edition of the SprintCarUnlimited.com deep dive presented by EnTrust IT Solutions. Thanks to Philip Dietz for joining us on the show. It was good stuff. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel for more content, and check out our daily exclusive content at www.sprintcarunlimited.com. Join us next week for another edition of the SprintCarUnlimited.com deep dive.